Coming up in This Week in Computer Hardware, Dell, HP, and Lenovo UNITE, new iMacs, Alienware Steam Box, liquid cooling success and failure, the ThinkPad Stack, and more. It's all coming up next on TWiCH.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiCH.
Bandwidth for TWiCH is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is TWiCH. This Week in Computer Hardware, episode 337, recorded October 15th, 2015. PC does what?
This episode of This Week in Computer Hardware is brought to you by Ting.com. Ting is a mobile phone service that helps you save money by offering a fair price for the services you use. Visit twitch.ting.com to get $25 towards your device or service and find out how much you can save. And by the Ring Video Doorbell. With Ring, you can see and talk to anyone at your door from anywhere in the world using your smartphone. It's like caller ID for your home. Right now, get free FedEx shipping when you go to ring.com/twitch.
Welcome to TWiCH, This Week in Computer Hardware, TWiCH's weekly show that aims to bring you the most useful, most informative, most delightful, most engaging, and perhaps even the sharpest commentary available in technological hardware news. Today, I myself am currently in love with liquid cooling and air cooling. I'm particularly enthusiastic about the Skylake processor I'm running because it's fast. And the thing I'm most enthusiastic about today is joining again, being on camera and in your earballs with Mr. Ryan Shrout of PCPer.com. I told you I shouldn't get fancy with the language today, and
You were right. You were right. You called it. Yeah.
And nearly killed us both. The children left behind. It is a peculiar news week, given how much crazy news we had in the last couple of weeks. It's relatively mild and mellow, anchored but what I think was one of the weirdest and maybe even saddest stories I've heard in a long time. I mean, it's a story of unity and growth, or at least an attempt to grow, but it was up on Recode. Intel, Microsoft, HP, Dell, and Lenovo unite, as in working together. Cutthroat competitors, at least 3 of them, and cutthroat suppliers, at least 2 of them, are going to do a PC advertising push. Ina Fried wrote this up for Recode. Quote, Intel and Microsoft are teaming with 3 leading PC makers on a new ad campaign designed to make potential computer buyers more aware of all the things a modern PC can do, which, if you're not familiar with a desktop PC, A, I'm not sure why you're listening to This Week in Computer Hardware, and B, it'll do everything your phone will do and more. And faster. The campaign with the slogan, I'm quoting again here, PC does what? Is apparently being announced today. And as far as we know, this is the first time they've all worked together like this.
I think they did like a live stream right before we started recording the show, but I didn't actually watch it. I wanted to, but I had to go out and get something to eat before the show started. They like had a representative from each of those companies on stage, and I don't know. Like the reaction to this is really, really mixed.
Right.
It's not just PC does what; it's PC does what spelled WHAAAT.
Question: PC does what?
Yeah. According to the reports, like Intel and Microsoft are the ones putting in most of the money for it. The Dell, HP, and Lenovo put in some. And, you know, a lot of like these marketing companies are using terms like desperate to describe what it does. I don't really understand where the desperation comes from, though. Like, I guess we just keep seeing declining PC sales, right?
One of the quotes in the Recode article is like there's another 8% drop forecasted in the PC market. PC market is not supposed to stabilize until 2017. PC manufacturers want to make money. Intel, I mean, that was one of the things Intel made money this quarter, despite the fact that overall desktop and laptop processor sales are down a little bit. So that was a big deal on Wall Street. But I've never really looked towards Wall Street for sort of, rapidly intelligible, smart market responses. But the the reason I'm kind of bringing that up is that, you know, it's a curious move. And if most of the money is coming from Microsoft and Intel, then I would guess either Microsoft and Intel either see themselves with the most to lose or the most to gain.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
I just thought it was odd. I mean, you know, I'm sitting here with 1, 2, 3, 4 desktops, 2 Raspberry Pis, you know, a Synology box, 1, 2 laptops.
Right,
So
yeah.
obviously, I'm at the far end of the bell curve.
Yep. Because like I was just thinking about it. It's like
farther along.
If you look at my wife, for example, she uses her phone, and
Right.
she has a MacBook, and I guess I haven't seen it move off of the coffee table that it's on. I'm sure the battery is dead. It's been 3, 4, 5. It's probably been 5, 6, 7, 8 days since she's actually picked it up and used it. I think the problem is we're the outliers in that group, right? Because I agree, just like you, I'm surrounded by this stuff all the time. An article I'm reading on Digiday is talking about that this ad campaign suggests PC makers are admitting defeat in a way, finally accepting a binary worldview that Apple itself put out a decade ago with the Mac versus PC ads. Worse, the tagline itself is misguided and almost feels tone deaf. I saw it and I was pretty sure it was a joke. Like,
Right.
you know, it's got like the banner for it is a blonde woman with her pulling her sunglasses down, making a surprised face. And it's, yeah, I thought, well, surely none of these guys are really going to spend that much money investing in what this particular campaign is. But apparently, yes, quite a bit.
Ha ha ha.
No,
This is
no specific
ridiculous.
number.
What?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong. I'm glad to see this kind of unification between these guys. Like, they don't have to unify their product lines to make a unified stance of, hey,
Unite the clans. Unite
Right.
the clans.
Exactly. It's very similar to that. When you are threatened from an outside source, whether it be Apple or it be just the degradation of the market. But the problem is, I don't think if the market's actually just like going away due to transitions in computing style, I don't think an ad campaign is going to fix it.
I'm not entirely sure an ad campaign would fix it no matter what is going on with the market, ... You know, and it's funny because so many people I know who are currently working on laptops are frustrated by the performance or what they can do. And it's like, oh, you should get a desktop. I get it. Your desktop doesn't go in your knapsack and you can't carry your desktop to use in your bed or in the kitchen. But, you know, your desktop is probably, you know, or if you buy a reasonably inexpensive desktop, is still probably going to spank your laptop.
Yeah, I agree.
Performance rise. That's like, you know, the Skylake, the Core i7 Skylake I picked up is you know, running my rendering software 4 times as fast. As you know, 2.5 times as fast as the 2-year-old Core i5, 4 times as fast as like a year-old Core i5 laptop. It's a huge ass kicking. And I can, you know, it's I don't know, it's interesting, especially, I mean, when you're looking at the lineup, it's really interesting to look at the lineup, what's going on hardware wise. You know, certainly with Apple is a particularly good example with the new iMacs. As new iMacs come out, and it's like, hey, you've got a 4K monitor, a 21.5-inch 4K monitor, which in Apple speak is colossal. Not to be confused with ginormous. I can't decide if the 27-inch is colossal or ginormous, or if the 21.5 is colossal or ginormous. A 5K screen on the 27-inch, a 4K screen on you know, the high-end 21.5-inch model. Same basically design. It's a good design. There's no reason to fix the design. You know, a healthy, thoughtful bump in performance. I love the fact that you can get 16 gigabytes on the 21.5-inch versions, 32 gigabytes on the 27-inch versions. This is also one of those moments, because I was looking at the specs on this, and from what I've been told, from what I understand, is this is not going to be particularly user accessible RAM. So loaded up with all the memory you think you might need in forever, which is, 16 or 32 gigabytes max. The graphics configurations are a little painful. Not, for 2D computing, they're fine, and I'm sure there's not a lot of people doing gaming on 21.5, like 3D. Certainly not 3D gaming on 21.5-inch MacBooks, but they're obviously, this is a classic moment where Apple's funneling everybody to the more expensive object, right? So, the 4K display is probably absolutely gorgeous on the 21.5-inch iMac. The 5K display on the 27-inch, I think, is excessive. Especially given how much you have to spend to get any kind of, to basically, well, I guess I apologize. They are all running, all the 27-inch iMacs are running Radeon R9 M380, 390 or 395 graphics. So that helps a bunch with performance, but it's frustrating because they're coming standard with rotating media drives. You can upgrade to a Fusion drive, which is kind of expensive, or what I think is a particularly overpriced SSD option on these. And it's been like, I've done the math, and there's been times when the memory on the MacBook was in line with the market, and there's times when the memory on the MacBook has been a little more expensive, for example. Boy, let me pull up the specs on this, because I just remember thinking, like, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now too. Like the 1 terabyte flash drive is a $700 upgrade over their 2 terabyte Fusion drive.
So that's okay. So it's
$700 more than the 2 terabyte Fusion drive, right. And their Fusion drives have more cache than kind of your traditional hybrid hard drives do. So
going from 8 gigabytes to 16 gigabytes is $200. Given that I just bought 16 gigabytes of DDR4 for $95, it seems like there's a good, healthy profit margin there. And, if you own Apple stock, you're probably excited about this. But, 512 gigabytes of flash storage is $500.
Yeah,
$500. Now, just for fun, let's take a quick gander. Let's go to Amazon.com. Not to suggest that Apple buys its hardware from Amazon.com, but Apple buys a lot of things. Maybe they should. Maybe it costs a lot to preload that hard drive in there. Oh, look at this. A Samsung 850 EVO 250 gigabyte 2.5-inch SATA 3 internal SSD. And that's selling for, well, $85. And they're selling 256 gigabytes of flash storage for $200. Well, certainly the 500. You know what? It's probably an M.2 drive, right? Those are pretty. Look at this. A 500 gigabyte M.2 drive is $174.75 singly off of Amazon, and 512 gigabytes of flash storage on the new iMacs is $500. That's a
fully spec'd out 27-inch 5K iMac.
Yeah.
Is with the higher end processor, 32 gigs of RAM, and the 1 terabyte SSD, and the higher end graphics card is $4,099.
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of dollars. That's a lot of dollars there.
I'm gonna type in a word I haven't typed in a long time. Hackintosh.
Yeah. I don't know what the status of that stuff is, to be honest with you. Yeah.
Lifehacker has an always up-to-date guide to building a Hackintosh, which may or may not be up-to-date.
That's not what you said. You said they have an always up-to-date one.
Yes, the always up-to-date guide to building a Hackintosh OS 10.10. 3,168,108 views, which is a lot of traffic on a web story. Yeah. I don't think it's been updated in a year. I should torture Alan. Be like, dude. Well, it's Tony Mac X80. Well, if you're looking at the price of the new iMacs and thinking to yourselves, no, I think not. TonyMacX86.com is still the source. And buyer's guide. Here we go. Tony Mac X86, always my faithful. Ooh, the Custom Mac Mini, Custom Mac Mini Deluxe, Custom Mac ITX, Custom Mac Pro, Custom Mac Budget ATX. That sounds like me. Hold on. Waiting for, there we go. The internet is slow today. Yeah, Gigabyte G8 Z97, the Core i3 or a Core i5, 8, 16, and 32 gigabytes of RAM. Yeah, look at that. Samsung 850 EVO, Seagate Barracudas, 551 hard drive. You know, we could probably
What's our
build
total there?
You know, they don't have the running total, but I guarantee you it's a delete expletive lot less than the cost of that fully rigged out. And, you know, I will say in Apple's defense, you know, whether or not they're charging 200 or 220% of the price of hardware after they put it in their machine, it's really hard to find a 5K monitor.
Nice.
Although, quite frankly, 4K on a 27-inch monitor is excessive enough. So we would have to add into the price of a 4K monitor. But yeah, I'm thinking we're saving some money here. My homework for next week will apparently be to look up Hackintosh pricing. But I don't know. It's funny, you know. Obviously, Apple's looking to make all the money they can, and boy, are they making money off of the iMacs if you upgrade. I don't know, you know, given the amount of layoffs and other problems, and obviously Dell and HP and their concerns, Lenovo, of course, their concerns about PC sales, perhaps there's something to be learned from Apple. The most unusual product I have seen in a long time. And I'm excited because I'm going to get to, there's an event involving Lenovo on Monday. So hopefully, I don't know if I'll be able to talk about any of it next week, but I'll be hands-on with Lenovo hardware on Monday. But this is tripping me out. It's PC Legos. It's the ThinkPad Stack. What is it, dude?
So this is a collection of accessories that magnetically stack together on top of one another in any order. And then if you scroll down a little bit, you'll notice on the top and the bottom of each device, there is a gold connector, like a multi-pin connector. One more picture down shows it better. And that connector allows the pass-through of both power and USB data, right? So you connect like they sell a kit that is a wireless router, like a portable wireless router and a portable hard drive. When you stack those two things on top of each other, it becomes a wireless network attached storage device, right? So you can power the router through a USB connection, like a regular wall wart type connection. And you can just run it as a router. You put that portable 1 terabyte USB 3.0 hard drive on top of it. And now that hard drive can be accessed by anybody on that wireless network. That's pretty cool. Then the other thing you can add is they have a 10,000 milliamp external battery. So you add that to the top or to the bottom of the stack. And now you don't have to have the router plugged in. Now it is a battery powered router with a network attached hard drive on it. And I think the fourth item there you can add is a Bluetooth speaker. Right now, it doesn't have any USB data connectivity back and forth, but it does kind of stack. It uses the magnets and it keeps it in place. It has its own internal battery, but it also will take power from the 10,000 milliamp hour battery as well. The software that Lenovo built for this is surprisingly robust. Like, it looks good and it feels good and it tends to do everything that it needs to do. You can monitor your speaker battery level, change the volume of the battery or change the volume of the speaker, the Bluetooth speaker, monitor the router, change the router settings and options, check the charge rate of your battery, for example. It does pretty well, and it's surprisingly robust. You can actually add a fifth item, but they only have 4 things right now. So the only thing that would make sense would be a second power bank, right? So you'd have 20,000 milliamp hours there. It's all really well built. It's well designed. It looks nice. It feels like a Lenovo ThinkPad product, which is obviously what they were going for. Mm-hmm. The problem it has is that it's overpriced. It's if you compare it to, just like we were kind of talking about with the iMacs, if you compare it to other products that match it specification-wise, these are going to be significantly more expensive. For example, the 10,000 milliamp hour battery bank, they're going to ask $69 for. You can find those on Amazon for $10. I probably wouldn't really like trust a whole lot of my equipment to them. But even if you get like a reasonable one that's $20 or $30 or $40, you're still talking about half the price of what Lenovo is asking for there. The Bluetooth speaker is kind of within range. It's maybe $20 or $30 overpriced if you compare it to like a Jambox Mini from Jawbone. And then the wireless router and hard drive combo is probably about twice the price it should be as well. If you just look at it in terms of, well, I can buy a 2.4 and 5 gigahertz portable router for this much, and a USB 3.0 1 terabyte hard drive for this much. But you don't get the build quality, the convenience, the style, like all the functionality of them together, right? But as we were talking about on our podcast last night, if you just kind of stack them on top of each other and use some duct tape, you could create a similar shaped item between all of those things if you bought them on Amazon instead of through the Lenovo Stack series. I really liked them. I thought the build quality was great and the functionality of it was pretty cool. I just think they were priced. I mean, they're priced towards the business user as opposed to kind of your everyday consumer. And maybe that's on purpose, or maybe they'll adjust it a little bit over the next coming months. And then we had suggestions in our comments about like, hey, it would be really cool if they added like a Pico projector to that stack, or they added like a mini PC to that stack, like as other options you could put on there. All right, so if you had the mini PC and you had 2 of those power banks and a Pico projector, and you had like a wireless, they had an app. Part of their app was like a keyboard, mouse, touchpad interface on your phone or something like that. I think that could be really cool. But this is just kind of their first attempt at it. So it was neat. It was pretty interesting.
Interesting is good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something that just came out, I didn't actually realize until a few minutes before the podcast, is Engadget has a review of the Alienware Steam machine.
Okay.
Sean Buckley wrote that up at Engadget, and I didn't realize that they were sampling these or had them out. But if you are curious about some of the early Steam machines, which are supposed to start arriving on November 10th, essentially it is the Alienware Alpha, which was the unofficial Steam machine that Dell launched last year. This is now, I guess, an official Steam machine. But ton of connections, USB ports, Ethernet ports, HDMI. But what I want to actually find out, quote, the console masquerade. I didn't expect a lot from Alienware Steam Machine when I first turned it on to be. It was just a collection of things I'd seen before. SteamOS TV-friendly interfaces existed for years. The Alpha came close to mimicking the feel of a game console, but the illusion was incomplete. So the Alienware Steam Machine, he writes, is everything that Windows-based PC game consoles aren't. Easy to set up, easy to use, extremely reliable, practically idiot-proof. Let me invoke the Alienware Alpha one more time to illustrate this, because it was such a miserable experience for Mr. Buckley. But it's interesting to take a look at it. Library menu, it is a console experience, he says. Quote, right now, SteamOS only lets users browse curated lists of featured and recently released games. These limited lists are organized by top sellers, recently updated and popular new releases. Interface is still in development. And apparently the controller works. It's interesting.
I have one. It'll probably be here tomorrow, I think, is what the plan is. But I have yet to get hands-on with that iteration of it, that version of it. So I'm very curious.
Looks pretty good. It's interesting to look at like the Portal 2 motion controls as they're mapped on there. But it's an interesting article up on Engadget, and it had just popped up, and I got kind of excited about it. Yeah,
it looks like that kind of just went up because Polygon.com has one as well from a couple hours ago. So yeah, I'll have to look those over.
It is interesting to see them start to arrive. Are you in love with Star Wars Battlefront? Is that a fair thing to say?
Well, I was until they turned it off, and now the beta's over, and so now nobody can play it anymore. I was sad. You know what? It was incredibly fun to play. It had been a long time since there was a game that I played that was like, oh man, I want to go home and boot up this laptop, this gaming laptop that I have, and I'm going to play this. And then I played it a little bit on the last day. At the screenshots you're looking at on that story were run at 3440 by 1440 at the ultra quality settings on a 34-inch Acer FreeSync display. It ran beautifully. And honestly, the screenshots don't really do it justice. You need to see it in motion. If you didn't get a chance to play it, the game will be out next month. I think November 11th is maybe the date for it. And it is essentially Battlefield multiplayer, but with Star Wars characters, guns, scenarios, all that type of stuff. And it was really, 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 really cool. It was reminded me about why you do this stuff. Right, like why people buy graphics cards and processors and all that, and big fancy monitors and whatnot. So I'm looking forward to that full release. I'm trying to figure out like some way to make it a work priority that we have to play it on day of launch and have some kind of big party that somebody wants to sponsor or something. There needs to be something like that that takes place so that I can have an excuse to like play for a full day.
It's
and not
work,
feel
honey.
like right,
It's
exactly.
work.
That's yes, correct. I need to be able to say that legitimately and have it be true. Yeah, that would help. That'd help me a lot.
It's important to have it be true. Well, you just let me know if I need to write you a note.
Thank you.
Ryan has to play this game all day for work. Please don't kill him and bury his body where it will never be found. His fans at PC Per. Actually, I know she won't kill you because the baby's still a baby and nobody wants to deal with a baby
That's true.
24 hours a day.
Right, yeah. That's my only saving grace at this point.
ROG G752 G-Sync gaming laptop. Is this another $1 billion 40-pound laptop, or is this something that more people will be able to afford?
Let's see. I mean, it's going to be an expensive laptop. This is not quite as, I mean, it doesn't have a full GTX 980. It goes up to the GTX 980M. This is really just a refresh of the G751 that they had before. It's got a G-Sync screen on it. It has Thunderbolt 3 support on it. It has the new Skylake unlocked processor, right? So you have some capability to maybe overclock a little bit there if you want to, depending on, you know, the cooling capability of the chassis, change color design, that type of stuff. But otherwise, very similar to what we've seen before, but still pretty awesome, I guess. Yeah.
Acer Predator X34, the first 34-inch curved IPS gaming monitor with G-Sync.
Correct.
I
will also have one of these next week, so be jealous of that.
As much as I don't particularly like curved HDTV screens, they do absolutely nothing for me. You know, I have fewer issues with the curved desktops. They don't bother me as much.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would like a 34-inch 3440 by 1440 ultra wide QHD display running at 60 hertz.
Yeah, it's really interesting because we have the FreeSync variant of this screen literally at the other table next to me, and I really like it. Color reproduction is good. After calibration, before calibration, it's still pretty good. Like you was talking about, the curve on it is actually curved on monitors is fine. It actually works really well. The resolution's great. The stand is good. You don't have height adjustment, but you have angle adjustment and whatever. It's a really cool thing. And since we'll have the G-Sync and the FreeSync one kind of here at the same time, this will be the closest we'll have in terms of identical panels and technologies, one claiming FreeSync, one claiming G-Sync. We can compare performance and style and all that stuff, but then also look at pricing and see where Acer puts the FreeSync capable one versus where they put the G-Sync capable display. So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out.
We should take a moment to thank our friends over at Ting.com. This episode is brought to you by Ting.com. Ting is a mobile phone service that helps you save money by offering a fair price for the services you actually use. Ting's billing system is so awesome. And I got to say, having been a Ting customer, their customer support, which I had to use once when I was bringing a new device on, was fantastic. Their U.S. mobile service on 2 nationwide networks now, T-Mobile and Sprint, GSM on T-Mobile, CDMA on Sprint. They don't believe in contracts. They don't believe in overage fees. They don't believe in sticking it to you. Can I say that in an advertisement? You know, or unlimited plans. And before you go like, but wait, I love my unlimited plan. Think about this for a second. So it's pretty cool, right? So you can have devices on different networks under the same account. So if T-Mobile works better in your area than Sprint, or Sprint works better in your area, or if your daughter is at college and T-Mobile works better there, and you like Sprint, it's okay. They'll make it work for you. The average monthly bill for Ting is $23 per device, right? They want to give you superior pricing. They want to minimize your phone bill. You know, with Ting, how you use your phone determines what you pay. If you use less, you pay less. There's no overage charges. There's no penalties. There's no contracts. You pay for what you use each month. You can go month to month. You can leave Ting. Not that I think you'd have any reasons to. If you're stuck in a contract, Ting will give you credit. If you have an early termination fee to pay to get out of your existing contract, and it may be worth your money, even without Ting's help, to get out of that current contract, they'll offer 25% credit of your ETF, up to $75 per device for coming to Ting. Go to ting.com/ETF for more information. 80% of devices out there can come to Ting. Use our device checker, the device checker at ting.com, ting.com/BYOD. Which is not BYOB, but that's a whole other conversation, to see if your device can make the move to Ting. Great online control panel. It's pretty powerful, where you can really see who's using what, and so much about so many mobile services are making it as difficult as possible to realize how much you're spending for how little you're using, or, to fix the problem with somebody going 4 terabytes over every month. And it's cool. If you need to upgrade, they have a ton of options in your online shop. Once you have the device you want to use with Ting, they'll walk you through getting started, including bringing over your existing number or getting a new one. If you've never been to ting.com, do me a favor. Go over to TWiCH, TWiCH.ting.com, and take a look at what's going on there. If you've never taken a look at their calculators that they have over at ting.com, it could be very revealing. They call it their savings calculator. It's in the big blue bar at the top of the webpage. And you can figure out, how many minutes you're using, how many text messages do you do in a given month, how many megabytes of data, and you can figure out how much you're going to spend. And you might find out you will spend a staggering amount less if you move yourself or your small business or your family over to ting.com. Do us a favor. Save money, better manage your cell usage with Ting. Because you're a fan of this week in computer hardware, we can get you $25 off select devices or mobile phone service just for getting started at ting.com. That's twitch.ting.com, and we want to thank them for their support of This Week in Computer Hardware. That's Twitch, TWiCH.ting.com. Save yourself some money and get a much better deal on mobile service. So, go Ting. Mm-hmm. You really like the Acer PG27 9Q. It's a 2560 by 1440 IPS G-Sync monitor. Is it running at 165 hertz most of the time, some of the time?
So the 165 hertz is basically its maximum refresh rate. Mm-hmm. So if you are in G-Sync mode, it will operate at the variable refresh rate up to 165 frames per second, and then it will kind of go into a V-Sync mode. If you are not running in G-Sync mode, then on the Windows desktop or whatever it happens to be, if you have an AMD graphics card or something like that, then you basically get to run at 165 hertz refresh rate, right? Mm-hmm. This is interesting to me because we haven't really seen anything sold off the shelf at anything above 144 hertz. Right, so mm-hmm. that had kind of been the top level, and that had really been the top level for TN panels rather than IPS panels for a long time. And only recently we're starting to see IPS panels get into that same kind of refresh rate range. And now we're seeing, Asus kind of take a step further with an IPS mm-hmm. panel, which means you're going to get better color reproduction, you're going to get better viewing angles, all the benefits of IPS over TN, but at a even higher refresh rate than we have seen before, which should be really cool. Now, obviously, I think the benefit you get in the increase from 144 hertz to 165 hertz is probably going to be fairly minimal, right? Like, it's not going to be an earth-shattering change like if you went from 60 right. to 144, but more is still better. And I think Asus felt like they needed to do something different specification-wise in order to make their monitor stand out against the Acer IPS 144 hertz IPS screen that has been out for several months, at least 4 or 5 months, at least. and they're a little bit late to the game in this regard. So I think it'll help be a marketing point for sure. But it has the same build quality, it has the same build style, same design cues as the original ROG Swift, which was an incredibly popular monitor for a very long time because it properly implemented G-Sync for the first time, really, and was a good-looking display at the same time. So I think this will be in the same ballpark as that. And again, this is something that should be out within the next 30 days or so, 30 to 60 days. Although we'll have to see what availability is like. When the ROG Swift, the first one came out, the PG278Q, it had availability issues for a very long time. And so hopefully we're past all that.
It would be nice if we were past all that. Let's just get past all that.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness. So I mentioned earlier, we were talking before show. I talked a little bit. We did a Patreon only build on Tech Thing where I built my Skylake, and then we did a whole bunch of experimenting with liquid cooling, just to be super fancy. One, it's amazing how good a job the Scythe Mugen 4 does, which is kind of your classic gigantic, bundle of copper and heat tubes and radiator fans on there. And then it was crazy looking at the 100i GTX from Corsair. This kept the processor, and I was doing a mild overclock. It was amazing what a pain it was to get a bunch of things fixed. Because I had to update. We were talking, I called up Brian. I'm like, it's like, yes, update your BIOS and then, reset everything. And I did, and it fixed it. I was in the process of updating the BIOS. It was funny because it wouldn't recognize the processor and it wouldn't overclock, and things were really hinky, to use a word I rarely get to use. But it was crazy. Once I got everything configured, the H100i GTX was keeping, I left EIST on because I wanted to see, how fast I could run the processor and how good a job the device would do cooling it. And this was keeping it down around 55 degrees Celsius, running at like 3,800 hertz, 3,890 hertz with Prime 95 running at please kill my processor mode. Which was a heap better than the 80i GT or the Scythe Mugen 4. But it's funny. It's funny how a processor will either really respond well to liquid cooling or it won't. I also realized I need to go to reform school for my thermal compound application. But we talk a little bit about that more on that on Tech Thing. But I also forgot what a pain it is, even with the overclocking tools, to overclock anything. If you want it to be stable,
it's true.
You get it up, you run it, okay. Because one of the things it turns out with Skylake seems to be particularly Handbrake seems to be has particularly sensitive reactions to overclocking on Skylake, and Handbrake is a huge part of the reason I built the machine. So that's been a little bit exciting. To take a look at. Something coming up for review on Tech Thing next week. Synology's Disk Station Manager 6.0. I'm sure Alan's going to be playing around with this. They also, Synology, who's one of our favorite NAS manufacturers, released some new hardware. I want to say the DS716 Plus, the DS216 Play, the NVR216, and the RT1900 AC, which looks to be a router over there on the right. But Disk Manager 6.0 is thinking large in the future. Support for up to a petabyte of disk space, Docker, virtual DSM instances, better support for 64-bit storage, and, quote, even Apple Watch connectivity, because, if there's something I need in my life, it's my NAS talking to my watch, which is kind of ridiculous and something I kind of desperately want. So I'll probably be playing around with some with that in the next few weeks. But RT1900 AC is a wireless router with essentially the software built in to make connections to DSM. and basically to manage those connections better over your wireless system. I'll be curious to see what performance on that looks like. And then the DS716 Plus, I think they're going for some serious performance because they put a 4-core Broswell processor in there. And apparently it will transcode 4K video in real time, which if you've been looking for 4K video transcoding, Synology has the NAS for you. If you're just looking to store files safely, Synology has the NAS for you. And if you want your Apple Watch to talk to your NAS, Synology has the Disk Station Manager operating system for you. So, yay. I love companies that keep supporting their products. It makes me happy.
That's true. It's kind of few and far between these days, but yeah. So yes, it should be pointed out and supported when those companies do that.
We like supporting companies. Are you currently? I mean, this is something. This is something I wanted to ask in front of the audience. Is it safe to buy a GPU? Is anything coming in the next, between now and Christmas? Can we start our holiday shopping? Because it feels like November is going to be the month for laptops. We talked about that last week. All the new laptops, all the new Skylake laptops have been announced, right?
Yeah.
The Z170 motherboards are out. We pretty much have the Core i5 and the Core i7K versions of the Skylake processors for enthusiasts or anybody who wants a fair amount of power. Those are out. Is it safe to buy a GPU, or can we expect some more activity between AMD and NVIDIA in the next few weeks?
I don't think you'll see anything from AMD.
Okay.
There's a chance we see something from NVIDIA, but I really don't expect it to be a dramatic change in a lot of ways. Like they're not going to release their 16 nanometer product yet.
Right.
I don't think that's going to be before the end of the year. I honestly don't know. I'm not holding back because I know what I'm allowed to say. I honestly don't know. I kept hearing rumblings and rumors of something happening in the November timeframe, but I don't know. And I don't think it will be a total shift in their product lineup.
Right.
They're not going to release an entire new lineup. They may release like a new high-end flagship part, like $500 or $600 part. But I don't think they would release like a $6, a $5, and a $4 and a $300 part between now and the end of the year for sure. So that's I would if it were me, I would feel comfortable buying a GPU right now. Yeah.
So it's okay if I want to upgrade my GPU, I can do that.
I think so. I mean, look, you will always have a new part that will come out at some point and make you mad that you upgraded your part then. That will always be the case. We've had that statement, argument on this show many, many times.
Right.
Should I wait? Should I wait? The truth is if there's something you want to play, there's something you want to upgrade to, then you should probably not wait anymore. Like, there are very few instances where I would say otherwise, right? Like today, I would say don't buy a Broadwell notebook. Right, don't buy a Dell XPS 13 with a Broadwell processor in it. That would be dumb because we've seen all the announcements. We're just waiting for them to trickle out into the market, like those types of things.
But it's not like the Skylake processors are going to have this ridiculous boost in performance over the existing parts.
True.
So
they might have a battery life increase, and that's the thing is I don't really know for sure, but yeah.
Well, I mean, the other thing is the best reason to not buy it now is because when the Skylake units come out, the older processor models should drop in price, which is probably not helping out, HP and Dell and Lenovo with their profit motivation, but it's certainly good information to give out to our viewers. We also should point out that we always recommend that you save your money and then buy all your parts when you're ready to build. Don't buy a GPU now and then save money and then buy a motherboard and a processor in 6 months, because in 6 months, the GPU you bought 6 months ago will either be available for less money for the same power, or a new GPU that offers more power for the same money will be out. I can do a huge argument about that with a family member. I'm going to buy the memory now, and it's like, no. Well, what if I don't think? Yeah, their kind of big vote on that was, well, what if there's another big tsunami storm thing and memory doesn't become available? I'm like, I think we're good on memory. You know, and I think at this point, all the parts manufacturers are starting to disperse their production around the world so that a natural disaster in one nation state won't wipe out the entire industry. Or maybe not. There could be a story in there. I think you should start traveling the world to make sure that there are enough distributed sources of PC hardware that we won't run out.
Okay. All right. I could do that. That's fine.
Oh, my goodness. Ring.com/Twitch is also sponsoring This Week in Computer Hardware. As the user, apparently you got one for testing and then bought a second one. You are using you are using this video doorbell at home and at work, sir?
That is correct. That's correct. The Ring video doorbell, as it is called, basically allows you to use your smartphone to see who is at your door. It looks like a doorbell, kind of. It's got like a fisheye camera in it. Somebody hits the button, it rings there. It rings on your phone. You can have an accessory item on your Wi-Fi network as well that plugs into any outlet, and it kind of amplifies it or repeats the doorbell chime. That is if you don't have wiring to where you want to install it. If you do have wiring to where you want to install it, we'll just use your existing door chime. So I mean, one of the great uses of the Ring video doorbell is as kind of like a home safety thing. 95% of home break-ins happen during the day. These criminals usually start by ringing the doorbell to see if someone's home before pillaging your possessions. With the Ring video doorbell, you can see and talk to anyone at your door from anywhere in the world using your smartphone. So obviously the idea being that they are no longer interested in robbing you if you can indicate that you may be inside the house there. Built into the Ring.com doorbell is an advanced motion detector. If someone comes to your door, you'll receive an alert on your smartphone, even if they don't ring the doorbell, and that's pretty nice. Installing the device takes only minutes, and it comes with everything you need, including the drill bit and a level to make sure that it looks nice as you put it on that door frame. For total convenience, it connects to your existing doorbell wiring, as I mentioned, or it runs off of a built-in rechargeable battery, which I still have not had to recharge, interestingly enough. I haven't even been told it's got a low battery or anything yet. So it's still, it's doing great. And this is many months into use here at the office, at least. Put your mind at ease and protect your home with the video doorbell. Time magazine named one of the top 10 gadgets of 2014. And I use it for the office to answer FedEx and UPS calls as well, right? So if I went across the street to go pick up lunch, FedEx happens to show up when I'm at lunch, which happens all the time. They hit that button and I say, hey, you know, I'll be there in 10 minutes. Just go ahead and leave the package. No problem. I have yet to be turned down with that request, and that's incredibly helpful to have. So I don't have to worry about waiting until 7:30 p.m. to go to a FedEx depot to pick up a box that I needed that day. So you too can have the convenience of that. You can protect your home, prevent burglaries if you pick up one of these Ring video doorbells. If you go to ring.com/Twitch, you can get free FedEx shipping. That's ring.com/Twitch with free shipping. And with Ring, you are always home. We thank them for their support of This Week in Computer Hardware. It's a cool device. It really is.
There you have it.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. If you're wondering what the future of photography is, apparently 8K imaging tech is creeping along faster than I expected. The Inquirer had a report. Quote, Canon demos the future of video with 8K imaging tech. Lee Bell wrote this up for them. They're in Paris, which must be a very lovely place to go see imagery. Quote, Canon introduced the new technology for the first time in Europe at its Expo 2015 event in Paris on Tuesday, attended by the Inquirer, giving us a glimpse of an 8K camera alongside its viewing potential via 8K video screens. And we have to say we were pretty blown away by it. So now we have ultra high definition tech, although I don't know if that's going to be the name of it moving forward. This is not going to show up for consumer or professional cameras anytime soon. But Canon's way of giving note that it was on its way, and it looks pretty fantastic. This almost makes me want to go to NAB next year just to see if they have any 8K cameras in place. This is not anything that consumers want or need anytime soon. 4K is barely out. Professionals certainly might be looking at this. But what's crazy is when you start looking at the pictures, the amount of resolution, the amount of detail that's available in sub-pictures of it. I can think of some interesting ways to use this in video production.
Oh, yeah.
But the other thing that the Inquirer points out is that Canon was talking about the imaging of things as being the companion component for imaging technology companies to ride along on the coattail of the Internet of Things. I don't know. I'm kind of curious to see, how long it gets to the point where we have enough 4K televisions in place to actually have a lot of 4K content. I'm not holding my breath anytime soon. I'm not holding my breath, period. As far as 8K content goes. But it's funny because, when they redid sort of the ultimate legendary, amazing film restoration of all time is probably the last restoration of The Wizard of Oz, which they did an 8K scan. And now that's seeming, they didn't do it for 8K distribution, but certainly to get the highest level of detail they could because of the amount of work they put into that one. But it'll be interesting. Phoronix has a great story. The 60-plus server and PC basement. Michael Larabelle wrote this up. A 6-month redux after building a 60-plus system basement server computer room. And I love the fact there's before and after pictures. As somebody who never gets to work as fast as he needs to on the house because of the children and their incessant needs.
That's a pretty good before and after.
That's a pretty amazing before and after.
Oh, I stopped at the second picture. Yeah, I got to keep going.
Don't stop.
Plus, he's got a bar down there. Very nice.
The bar, the leather furniture. But apparently, he managed to fit like 60 PCs in the closet.
Does he talk about the cooling that he has to put in for that? Because if you're running 60 PCs in a basement, I don't care if it's subterranean, it's going to get hot.
Well, it depends. Well, it's funny. So an average basement, basement, if most of the basement is under dirt, is going to be sort of in the 55 degree year round. I think they are all in the closet. Because if you look on the left, if you scroll down to the second picture, you see the racks on the left, kind of by the projector. And the rack situation gets pretty 3 racks. 2 double width, 1 single width. They're all 42U StarTech server racks. It doesn't really get into, unless there's there's 4 pages on this.
Mm-hmm. There's a projector hanging from the ceiling. He's got some. Yeah. He had the trick I used a while ago, which was to get letter slots.
Oh, here we go.
To hold laptops and tablets.
If you scroll down on page 2, quote, of course, another major expected downside is power use. The current power use for the approximately 60 systems running daily is about 3,000 kilowatt hours a month, including the air conditioning. The electrical costs over the past 6 months are already greater than what it cost me when building out this server room itself. So... That's pretty heavy. So that's over 372,000 benchmarks have been done so far. I also love the fact there's like a server rack next to the mini bar area. Yeah. I find that highly amusing.
Yeah.
Also, really...
There are a lot of IT guys that would like to have that, I'm sure.
Yeah. I'd also really like Mr. Larabelle to get a screen for his projector, but that's just because I've been living with Robert Heron in my life for so long.
Projecting straight on the wall doesn't get you, huh?
It's an excellent start, but yeah, it's kind of crazy. It's a pretty cool. It's not our usual build coverage, but it's pretty cool, especially when you start looking at all the kind of stuff he's doing inside of there. It's a lot of benchmarking. And a lot of servers. From the, great, just what I needed. A bunch of people tweeted to Shannon and I about this, and you guys wrote it up. Jeremy wrote it up on PCPer.com. So essentially, if you have a profound desire to wipe out all 2.4 gigahertz transmissions in a 120-meter radius, all you need is a Raspberry Pi and a cheap Wi-Fi dongle. Full story is up on the register, but basically it talks about... use some firmware mods in the Wi-Fi dongle, and it'll continually resend a frame and block any device with a higher bit rate by taking advantage of the short interframe space, or SIFs. Yeah. So the article in the Register also talks about TKIP vulnerabilities, possible ways to block transmissions in the 5 gigahertz band. And this came out in the BrewCon conference a couple weeks ago. The wireless security boffin presented his work at the BrewCon conference last week and revealed his weapon of choice is a bargain Wi-Fi dongle bought off Amazon that, when paired with a Raspberry Pi and a small amplifier, can block 2.4 gigahertz transmissions for up to 120 meters. The street finds its own uses for things, period.
Is there a legitimate use for this, do you think?
Yeah, I could think of one, but it would have to be a 3-letter government agency that can explain or have a relationship with the FCC that allows them to do things that the FCC would be pissy about.
Fair enough.
It's not exactly a spark gap transmitter in terms of like ugliness, but generally speaking, I don't think it's something you should be doing. Morally, I have issues with it. Whether or not there's legal ramifications, I can't tell. I'd have to take a look at it. I mean, one thing that's going on moving forward in the 5 gigahertz space is that the FCC is forcing router manufacturers to lock down the firmware in a way that it cannot be replaced with open source firmware. Hopefully, they will reconsider that, given the steaming pile of sadness that is router support by major router manufacturers, which, I'd like to say, well, router manufacturers stopped really supporting their hardware once they realized what a tremendous job the open source community was doing. But the reality is the open source community is doing a tremendous job creating router operating systems and keeping them up to date and secure, because router companies expect us to spend $100 to $200 on a router, get one firmware update, and then be ignored for the rest of the life of the hardware. So
right.
Hopefully someone will politely speak to the FCC and say, this is a bad idea. But, you could also discuss that, well, the FCC only wants sort of the power ramifications and lockdown, but the only way we'll save it for November when the FCC starts responding to the request for comments. Got a great question from, this is so bad, but so timely given my current experiments with liquid cooling. Sealed liquid cooling is awesome. Sean McCoy says, at Patrick Norton, at Ryan Shrout, due to a sad liquid incident, I shorted out my GPU. What are the chances my X16 slot was damaged too? And before you answer, Ryan, let me read part 2 of this 2-part question with a comment. So I guess it's a 3-tweet comment question. Sean McCoy adds, I have an R9 380. Should I play it safe and use my X8 slot? Any risk to trying X16 first? And wait, again, before you answer part 3, I should note, that I did see a brief flame in the GPU area as I was scrambling to unplug. It's really hard to get flames inside of your PC. I did have a miswired device, an accessory, the video encoding accessory inside of a PC. Once plugged the cable in backward because it wasn't keyed properly, and it melted, turned the wire red hot, which I knew it was red hot when it melted through the insulation, which is always a little terrifying when you're in a glass room full of electronics and fire sprinkler heads. But I am of two minds. First of all, your GPU could be thrashed already. Your motherboard could be thrashed. I would probably start up by firing up the motherboard and connecting any GPU or any graphics, connectors, VGA or HDMI on the motherboard to see whether or not the processor even boots. If you want to be, smart about it, you could try to boot the machine and listen for a post code to see if the motherboard has gone to the great beyond where the magic smoke lies. But I figure if you're going to fire it up, you may as well connect the monitor to it and see whether or not anything shows up on the monitor. So one, the motherboard could be dead. The GPU could be dead. Both the GPU and the motherboard could be dead. Extremely smart money would be like, don't bring that GPU or that motherboard into my house. Throw them away and replace them immediately. I dare say both Ryan and I would probably plug the GPU into whatever slot didn't have smoke and arcing problems, because that's actually something you should do is take a look in that X16 slot, and if you've managed to sort of arc some of those connectors together, which is extremely difficult to do, but within the realm of possibility, don't fire up the motherboard. Don't put the GPU in there and fire it up. But if all the pins still seem to be separate and not bridged or melted together, then start with the GPU in the X8 slot and see if it fires up. I would probably start with the motherboard. Do a close inspection of the motherboard. Make sure it's actually dry. Make sure it's really hard to see with surface mount components if you've blown a very, very tiny capacitor or resistor. But do a visual inspection and look for any components that'll let the magic smoke out. Because if you've seen flame, I'm assuming something weird went on inside of there. But do a close visual inspection of the motherboard, do a close visual inspection of the pins in the X16 slot, do a close visual inspection of the connector on the GPU, and see whether or not anything looks like it's been permanently arced, damaged, abused, or melted away. And if the answer is no, I would probably be conservative and start by firing up the motherboard to see whether or not it worked. And then if it worked, then I would go ahead and probably plug the GPU into the X8 slot and see if it worked. Or if you have a very, very generous friend with a PC and they'll let you plug that GPU into there, you can verify that the GPU works on their machine, and then go ahead and either run it on the X8 slot or see if you can kill the thing again and dump it into the X16 slot. I've been told that I have a cavalier attitude towards hardware. But I will also say that it is amazing how much abuse consumer level hardware will survive.
I agree with that. Yeah.
More than it should. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, PC hardware manufacturers. On that bright and cheerful note, anything exciting you can tell us about that's coming up on PC Pro next week?
Well, we're working on finally getting the review of that Acer FreeSync 3440 by 1440, and then we will have the G-Sync version of that in next week. I don't know if we'll have it in time to talk about it on next week's episode of TWiCH, but I'll have it in at the very least. And let's see, as he looks around the room, we did get... We have another kind of DX12 story brewing, I think, that will be available for us to talk about next week as well.
So secretive.
Yeah.
So delightful.
Yeah.
We talked about some ways to get around connecting your desktop to your LAN without dragging cables from, say, your living room through your dining room to your desk. LastPass got bought by LogMeIn. Whether or not it's time to stop using LastPass. I got crazy with the M.2 drive enclosures, which have they all seem to basically, if not from the same plant, then certainly from the same set of plans. But I got kind of crazy explaining all of the M.2 keying and sort of like what you get out of a B+M or a B-keyed drive versus an M-keyed drive, and the fact that the M.2 form factor is also being used for Wi-Fi and wireless modems. It's pretty crazy, but I was kind of blown away by how messy the whole scene is. You've got like 5 different length cards, 3 different sets of keying.
It's true.
And a lot of mixed reviews on this, but in my testing, well, I'll make you watch TechZilla to find out. It's pretty early. Hey, I can be cruel like that.
You can. That's fine. Yeah, I know.
It's pretty early. Like if you have an MSATA drive, Sabrent's USB 3.0 MSATA connector is kind of like the way to go. I think there's like 2,700 positive reviews of this, like 4 or 5 star reviews of this on. If you want to turn your old laptop MSATA drive into something, or if you just want to connect your new one and clone stuff over instead of putting your new operating system on there. And they're cheap too. Like either one of these is $15 off of Amazon, but we get more into that on Tech Thing this week. And I think I'll be reviewing the Element operating system on next week's Tech Thing, which looks very Mac-like, but is actually a Linux distribution. So that will either be joyful or damn near kill me. And the only way to find out is to tune in next week. And with that, I'm Patrick Norton.
I'm Ryan Shrout.
we'll see you next week on Twitch.